The night settles in slowly, like a soft curtain drifting across the sky, and with it comes a gentle invitation to let the world grow quiet. As you ease into a comfortable position, the edges of the day begin to blur, leaving behind only the calm that comes from knowing there is nowhere you need to be, nothing you need to do, except listen. In this stillness, your mind becomes open to a different kind of journey, one that drifts not through crowded streets or noisy memories, but through the vast, tranquil expanse of history, mystery, and the quiet glow of unanswered questions. Human beings have looked upward for thousands of years, tracing patterns in the stars, interpreting movements of distant lights, and wondering what else might share this immense cosmic space with us. It is a curiosity older than any single civilization, and yet it remains as quietly stirring now as it was then. Tonight, we wander gently into one chapter of that long curiosity, the era of classic UFO investigations conducted by NICAP, the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena. Their work belongs to a time when the world's skies were busier with airplanes than ever before, when nations watched each other with suspicion, and when scientific progress moved so quickly that the strange became almost expected. The 1950s and 1960s were decades filled with both tension and wonder, shaped by cold conflicts on the ground and technological dreams lifting into the atmosphere. People were learning to live with the idea that rockets could reach space, that satellites could orbit Earth, and that the boundaries of human knowledge were expanding at unprecedented speed. In such an environment, reports of unusual lights or unexplained movements in the sky carried a special weight. They were not merely stories. They were questions that needed careful, calm examination. As the day's noise fades further, imagine those nights long ago when radar operators, pilots, and ordinary citizens looked up and saw things they could not immediately explain. Some were quiet flickers at the edge of vision. Others were bright, structured shapes moving with deliberate motion. These observers did not rush to conclusions. Many had military training, scientific expertise, or professional responsibilities that demanded precision. They recorded what they saw, sometimes with steady hands and sometimes with trembling uncertainty, yet always with the sincerity that accompanies a moment of genuine confusion. Their testimonies would soon be gathered by NICAP, an organization that approached the unknown with an unusual combination of seriousness and patience. They were not thrill seekers. They were not storytellers chasing the extraordinary. They were, instead, people devoted to sorting truth from illusion. This journey is not meant to excite or startle. Instead, it invites you to drift deeper into a relaxed curiosity, a state where the unknown feels gentle rather than urgent. The cases we will explore belong to an age before digital cameras and social media, when reports depended on human memory, handwritten notes, and long conversations between investigators and witnesses. There is a quietness to that era, a slower rhythm that naturally supports a calming atmosphere. You can imagine researchers sitting across from witnesses, listening carefully, asking deliberate questions, and reviewing radar logs late into the night. There were no flashing headlines on phones, no rapid debates online, only the slow, patient process of gathering details and building understanding piece by piece. As your breathing softens and your body relaxes, think of this unfolding story like a gentle path illuminated by faint starlight. Each step brings you further away from the demands of everyday life and closer to a thoughtful exploration of events that have puzzled experts for decades. The mystery is not presented as something frightening, but as something beautifully human, a reflection of our endless desire to comprehend the world beyond our immediate reach. Every culture has its sky legends, its celestial wonders, its tales of visitors or guardians or unexplained lights drifting between the stars. NICAP's work belongs to that broader tradition, yet grounded in documentation, eyewitness interviews, and a steadfast commitment to accuracy. Let your mind wander without effort, knowing that what lies ahead is a smooth, uninterrupted flow through history and mystery. There are no sudden twists, no dramatic confrontations, only the steady unfolding of events, as they were described by people who simply recorded what they observed. As we move deeper into these classic cases, you will find yourself drifting through calm descriptions of radar rooms, open fields, quiet highways, and evening skies where unusual lights appeared without warning. The goal is not to draw conclusions, but to rest comfortably in the space between certainty and possibility, where the imagination can drift freely without pressure. In this gentle atmosphere, you are free to listen without expectation. Whether you remain awake for every detail or drift slowly into sleep, the story will continue at a steady, soothing pace. There is no need to analyze or decide. The mysteries have lingered for decades, and they can linger a little longer while you relax. Let each moment guide you deeper into tranquility as we begin exploring the world of NICAP's most intriguing and carefully documented encounters, all revealed at a pace designed to help your mind settle into ease and curiosity in equal measure. In the soft quiet of this unfolding narrative, the story drifts gently into the origins of NICAP, a group whose calm determination shaped much of what we understand about early UFO investigations. To imagine its beginnings, picture the atmosphere of the mid-1950s, a world balancing on the edge of rapid technological change, where the skies were becoming busier each month. Commercial aviation was expanding, military jets were pushing past old speed limits, and the fear of foreign aircraft crossing invisible borders lingered in the background of everyday life. Governments were cautiously watching one another, building radar networks, and preparing for possibilities that most citizens preferred not to think about. In this environment of tension and progress, the idea of unexplained aerial phenomena felt both urgent and strangely familiar. The world was learning quickly that the sky held far more activity than ever before, and with that awareness came a rise in reports that demanded careful attention. NICAP, the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena, formed quietly in 1956. Unlike many earlier UFO groups built around enthusiastic hobbyists or sensational claims, NICAP chose a different path, one grounded in discipline, credibility, and the slow, steady accumulation of evidence. Its founders included military veterans, former intelligence officers, engineers, and professionals who did not approach the subject as a mystery to dramatize, but as a puzzle requiring patient, responsible study. At a time when most institutions preferred to laugh off or dismiss reports of unidentified objects, NICAP presented itself as a voice of sober curiosity. They did not rush toward extraordinary explanations. Instead, they emphasized documentation, witness reliability, and the importance of distinguishing genuine anomalies from misinterpreted natural events. To understand why NICAP became such a significant presence, it helps to appreciate the psychology of the era. The Cold War had created a world where people were acutely aware of their vulnerability. Strange objects in the sky were no longer merely curiosities. They might have represented surveillance, reconnaissance, or advanced aircraft belonging to rival nations. For scientists and military officers, unexplained sightings could not simply be ignored. Yet, official government responses often felt incomplete or overly dismissive, leading many individuals to wonder whether something was being withheld. NICAP stepped into this gap between public curiosity and official silence, offering a space where sightings could be documented without ridicule and analyzed without premature judgment. The organization began collecting reports from pilots, radar operators, police officers, scientists, and civilians from all walks of life. These witnesses often described their experiences hesitantly, sometimes even nervously, aware of the social stigma attached to seeing something unusual. NICAP investigators would listen carefully, gently guiding interviews without pressing for dramatic details. Their goal was always clarity, to capture the witness's experience in the simplest and most accurate terms. They gathered flight records, weather data, radar logs, astronomical information, and, when possible, photographs or sketches. Each case became a small window into a broader pattern of events unfolding across the country and around the world. As NICAP grew, it became known for its professionalism. Its members understood that the field of UFO research was often clouded by sensationalism, and they worked diligently to distance themselves from it. Their reports were written in calm, measured language, with an emphasis on what could be verified. Even when their investigations uncovered inconsistencies in official explanations, NICAP avoided accusatory tones. Instead, they presented discrepancies gently but firmly, allowing the evidence to speak for itself. This approach gradually drew the attention of journalists, scientists, and even some politicians, who recognized that NICAP was not chasing fantasies, but rather trying to bring transparency to a subject plagued by uncertainty. Behind NICAP's work was a persistent belief that unexplained aerial phenomena deserved serious consideration. Many of the organization's members argued that even if all sightings were eventually explained by natural or human-made causes, the process of investigation still held immense value. It encouraged better data collection, fostered cooperation between pilots and ground personnel, and promoted scientific curiosity. But there was also an unspoken acknowledgement that some cases resisted easy answers. Witnesses described objects that moved with unusual speed, changed direction abruptly, or hovered without visible means of propulsion. Radar operators tracked targets that appeared and disappeared unpredictably. These details were not framed as proof of anything extraordinary, only as elements requiring deeper examination. While the government maintained its own programs, most notably the Air Force's Project Blue Book, NICAP often served as a counterbalance. Many citizens felt more comfortable reporting sightings to a civilian organization that seemed less focused on dismissing reports and more committed to understanding them. Over time, NICAP amassed thousands of case files, many of which contained observations from highly credible sources. These files painted a complex picture, not of definitive answers, but of patterns, clusters of sightings, and recurring characteristics that suggested there was more to the mystery than simple misidentification. As the story moves gently through this history, think of NICAP not as a dramatic force, but as a steady one, composed of people who believed that patient inquiry mattered. Their commitment created a foundation for later researchers, journalists, and government investigators. And in the quiet rhythm of their work, there is something soothing, something reassuring. The idea that even in uncertain times, there are those who move slowly, carefully, and thoughtfully toward understanding. The summer of 1952 carried with it a heat that settled over Washington, D.C., like a heavy blanket, slowing the city's movements and creating shimmering distortions above long stretches of pavement. Yet within the cool interiors of air-conditioned radar rooms, where operators sat bathed in the faint glow of circular screens, the atmosphere felt different, sharp, focused, alert. These were environments built on precision, where each blip on the radar held meaning, where an unexpected signal could shift the course of an entire night. It was in these quiet, humming rooms that one of the most famous sequences of sightings began, setting off a chain of events that would ripple across the nation and press both civilians and officials to reconsider what might be moving through the American sky. On the night of July 19th, the first anomalies appeared. Radar operators at Washington National Airport noticed bright, fast-moving signals that did not match the flight paths of any known aircraft. These objects moved unpredictably, accelerating, stopping, changing direction abruptly, behaviors inconsistent with the technology of the time. At first, operators did what they were trained to do: rule out the simplest explanations. They checked for weather patterns, equipment malfunctions, or atmospheric distortions. But the signals persisted, moving with coherence rather than randomness. What made the situation even more compelling was that the radar team at Andrews Air Force Base, located nearby, soon reported identical readings. Independent confirmation, especially from multiple radar stations, was rare and significant. It meant the objects were not illusions, but real, physical targets detectable by separate systems. As minutes stretched on, reports shifted from instruments to human eyes. Pilots preparing for landing described unusual lights in the sky, soft, glowing orbs that hovered silently, unlike aircraft running lights or conventional navigation beacons. Some pilots said the lights darted away if approached, while others described them pacing their aircraft as if observing from a distance. These accounts came not from excitable amateurs, but from trained aviators accustomed to reading the sky with professional calm. Their voices carried steadiness, but also confusion, an unusual tone for people used to identifying weather patterns, distant aircraft, or reflections with ease. When air traffic controllers contacted the Air Force, interceptor jets were ordered to investigate. Yet by the time the jets arrived, the mysterious lights faded or vanished entirely, slipping away before pilots could make visual contact. This pattern would repeat over the following days, the objects appearing clearly on radar, witnessed by multiple people on the ground, then disappearing whenever jets approached. The rhythm of these encounters unsettled observers, not because it hinted at intelligence, but because it made no sense within the framework of conventional flight behavior. Aircraft, whether civilian or military, simply did not behave this way. The press caught hold of the story quickly. Newspapers published headlines that captured the public's anxious fascination. Saucer outbursts Joel Capitol, jets chase lights over Washington, and radar spots unknown objects again. The media coverage was not breathless, but deeply curious, reflecting the broader uncertainty of the time. People wondered whether these sightings were enemy aircraft probing U.S. defenses, experimental technology being tested secretly, or something that could not be readily categorized. The government, meanwhile, felt pressured to respond. Officials offered explanations grounded in natural phenomena, temperature inversions being the most common. Such inversions could, under certain conditions, create false radar targets or distort visual appearances. But many radar operators rejected this explanation, noting that they had experienced inversions before and knew their distinct patterns. The echoes tracked during the July events behaved like solid objects, not atmospheric reflections. Against this backdrop, NICAP began collecting reports and statements from witnesses. Their investigators interviewed radar technicians, pilots, and ground personnel, creating detailed timelines of the night's events. They noted that the object's speeds varied dramatically, moving slowly at one moment, then accelerating to thousands of miles per hour within seconds. These characteristics did not align with known aircraft capabilities of the early 1950s and NICAP's calm, methodical summaries highlighted these inconsistencies. Yet even as they gathered evidence, they refrained from stating definitive conclusions. Their focus remained on accuracy rather than interpretation. The psychological impact of the Washington sightings lingered long after the objects disappeared. For those who witnessed the events, the memory was less about fear and more about astonishment. Radar operators described a sense of responsibility, an awareness that the information passing through their hands could influence national decision-making. Pilots recalled moments of hesitation, as if caught between wanting to pursue the lights and knowing that doing so might push their aircraft beyond safe limits. The public, reading about the sightings in newspapers over morning coffee, felt a mix of curiosity and concern. The sky, once a symbol of predictability and progress, now seemed to hold something more elusive. What makes the Washington events so enduring is not a single sighting, but the combination of technical data, eyewitness accounts, and official responses. Together, they created a moment in history where the uncertain and the verifiable met. The mystery did not come from dramatic encounters, but from the quiet consistency of the reports, the professionalism of the witnesses, and the inability of the explanations to fully account for what happened. In the calm retelling of these events, their strangeness becomes gentle rather than alarming, a reminder that the sky can hold surprises even in the most carefully monitored of places. In the cool twilight of Red Bluff, California, a quiet town stretched across gentle hills and highways lined with familiar roadside landmarks. It was a kind of evening when the world seems to pause, leaving only the soft rustle of wind and the distant hum of cars on asphalt. On such a night in 1960, the ordinary would quietly give way to something that would leave witnesses questioning the limits of what could be seen or explained. Highway patrol officers, trained to interpret the road, the sky, and the behavior of travelers with a practiced eye, found themselves facing an event that defied the routines they had followed for years. What began as a routine patrol would slowly unfold into an encounter both vivid and perplexing, an experience that would be recorded carefully by NICAP and remembered for decades. The officers were driving along a familiar stretch of highway when they noticed an unusual glow ahead. At first, it seemed like a distant automobile, or perhaps the reflection of headlights on metal. But as they drew closer, the phenomenon revealed itself to be something far more unusual. The light was large, structured, and suspended silently in the air, moving with a grace that defied the mechanics of known vehicles. One officer described the shape as almost geometrical, with edges and surfaces that seemed intentionally designed. The object hovered low enough that it could have easily been mistaken for a grounded aircraft, yet it emitted no sound, no heat, and no indication of propulsion. For trained law enforcement officers, the discrepancy between expectation and observation created a peculiar tension, a mix of calm focus and disbelief that they later conveyed with remarkable clarity in their reports. As the officers continued their patrol, they attempted to follow the object, maintaining both distance and caution. Their movements were deliberate, guided by the instincts honed from years of experience on the road. The craft appeared aware of their presence, shifting slowly, but with an intelligence that was not aggressive, merely deliberate. The night air, still and clear, seemed to emphasize the silence of the encounter. Unlike other reported sightings that involved distant lights or fleeting glimmers, this object was tangible, close enough for the officers to note minute details. Reflections along its surface, patterns of light, and the way it maneuvered in space without the mechanisms they understood. Official explanations were quickly proposed after the report reached authorities. Some suggested that the officers had seen a mirage or a rare atmospheric phenomenon. Others hinted at misidentified aircraft, perhaps experimental jets or helicopters operating outside their usual routes. Yet the officers' sketches and detailed notes highlighted inconsistencies in these explanations. The size, movement, and duration of the sighting did not correspond to conventional technology or natural occurrences. NICAP investigators, when they later interviewed the witnesses, emphasized the credibility of these descriptions. Unlike civilian reports influenced by imagination or rumor, these accounts came from professionals accustomed to identifying irregularities, making their testimony particularly significant. The encounter did not remain a private matter for long. Word of the event spread through local newspapers, quietly at first, then more broadly, drawing the attention of neighbors and regional authorities. Families recalled similar lights seen in previous years, connecting the night's events to a wider pattern of local anomalies. The town, small and observant, became a place where quiet wonder replaced fear. Children pointed skyward. Adults discussed unusual patterns in casual conversation, and a shared curiosity permeated the community. NICAP's careful documentation ensured that these personal observations were preserved alongside the official statements, creating a richer, more nuanced record of the encounter. The psychological dimension of the Red Bluff incident is as compelling as the physical observations. Officers reported moments of intense focus mixed with a strange calm, a mental state akin to observation rather than pursuit. They were aware of the unusualness of the event but did not panic. They remained methodical, recording, sketching, and noting even the smallest details. For NICAP, this highlighted an important aspect of credible reporting, that witnesses capable of maintaining composure under stress often provide the most reliable information. The officer's professionalism allowed the phenomenon to be described with both accuracy and precision, reinforcing the notion that UFO encounters could be experienced by ordinary people without hysteria or exaggeration. In reflecting on this event, it is clear that the Red Bluff sighting occupies a unique space between ordinary life and the unknown. The encounter was not violent, not alarming in a traditional sense, but it carried a weight that demanded acknowledgement. It exemplified the subtle tension between what is familiar and what is inexplicable. NICAP's documentation of the case preserved these nuances, emphasizing both the observational clarity of the officers and the unanswered questions surrounding the object's origin and capabilities. The incident also illustrates how communities respond to such events, blending curiosity, discussion, and quiet fascination rather than fear or sensationalism. In the gentle rhythm of recounting this story, the mind can relax while still absorbing the details, the texture of the night, the careful observation, the human response to something entirely unknown. It reminds us that encounters with mystery are not always dramatic flashes or loud proclamations, but can exist as quiet, deliberate experiences that leave witnesses thoughtful, reflective, and deeply aware of the boundaries between the known and the unknowable. The Red Bluff incident, preserved in calm records and careful investigation, allows us to drift alongside those who experienced it, feeling the same sense of attentive wonder while resting in the quiet of the night. The Portage County chase of 1966 stands as one of the most unusual and widely discussed UFO encounters in history, yet its true nature remains a mystery, both captivating and perplexing. What makes this case particularly intriguing is not only the nature of the event itself, but the people involved, law enforcement officers, who were accustomed to witnessing the odd and the bizarre, yet were left in awe and confusion by what they encountered that night. The encounter, which unfolded on the quiet rural roads of Ohio, escalated rapidly, taking those involved on a chase that no one could have predicted. On the night of April 17, 1966, two sheriff's deputies, Patrolman Dale Spinks and Deputy Sheriff Dwayne Robinson, were on duty in Portage County when they spotted an unusual light in the sky. Initially, they thought it might be a conventional aircraft, perhaps a plane or a helicopter. However, as the light grew brighter and began to move erratically, their curiosity was piqued. The object would dart to the left, then sharply veer to the right, zigzagging across the sky in a manner that no known aircraft could match. What struck the deputies most was not just the erratic movement, but the sheer speed of the object. The light seemed to cover vast distances in the blink of an eye, behaving in ways that defied everything they had learned about air traffic and flight patterns. At first, the deputies attempted to rationalize what they were seeing, perhaps attributing it to a malfunctioning aircraft or some form of optical illusion. But the longer they watched, the less plausible such explanations seemed. They decided to follow the light, believing that it might be an aircraft in distress or some other emergency situation requiring their attention. As they pursued it, the object moved ahead of them with calculated precision, staying just out of reach, but always within their sight. They radioed in their observations, describing the object's behavior, yet no one else was able to confirm their sighting or track the object on radar. This only added to the mystery, leaving the deputies feeling more isolated in their experience. As they continued to follow the object, the situation took an even stranger turn. The object appeared to recognize their pursuit, accelerating further as they drew closer, forcing the deputies to increase speed in an attempt to close the gap. What happened next is difficult to explain. At times, the object seemed to stop entirely, hovering silently in midair before darting off at extraordinary speeds. In other moments, it seemed to move in a pattern that mirrored their vehicle's movements, as if the object was actively responding to their chase. The deputies were now fully engaged in what felt more like an intense pursuit than a casual observation. The sky, once calm and predictable, had turned into a strange battlefield where logic no longer held sway. Eventually, the object moved out of the deputies' view, disappearing into the night sky with no clear indication of where it had gone or how it had vanished so completely. The two men were left with only their accounts and the bewilderment of having witnessed something that no conventional explanation could fully account for. They were experienced officers, and the idea that they could be mistaken or fooled by something ordinary was simply too far-fetched. Something unusual, something beyond the ordinary, had transpired, and they could not deny it. The Portage County chase became a sensation not just because of its bizarre nature, but also because of the credibility of the witnesses involved. The officers had no reason to fabricate or exaggerate what they had experienced. They had been trained to assess situations objectively, and their reports were calm, clear, and consistent. Yet, when they returned to the sheriff's office and recounted their experience, the reaction was not one of sympathy or understanding. Instead, they were met with skepticism from their superiors, who, despite the professionalism of the officers, suggested that the incident might have been nothing more than a misidentification or a hoax. The deputies were left to feel that their extraordinary experience had been dismissed, even though they knew what they had seen was real. NICAP, however, took the deputies' account seriously. When the organization got wind of the Portage County incident, its investigators reached out to both the witnesses and other potential sources, including local residents and law enforcement officers, to piece together the full timeline of events. What they found was a series of discrepancies in the official explanations. Military reports indicated that there were no aircraft in the area that could account for the sightings, and radar records, while inconclusive, showed some irregularities that seemed to match the descriptions given by the deputies. NICAP investigators even spoke to other witnesses in the region, some of whom had observed similar lights on the same night. These corroborating reports made it clear that what the deputies had experienced was not an isolated incident, but part of a broader pattern of unexplained phenomena occurring across the area. The case also highlighted the psychological strain that such sightings can have on witnesses. For the deputies, the encounter was not merely a strange event, but one that challenged their understanding of reality. In many UFO cases, the witnesses are left in a state of uncertainty, where the evidence is ambiguous and the official explanations seem inadequate. In the case of the Portage County chase, the witnesses were not just left to grapple with their own perceptions. They were forced to deal with a broader social disbelief, one that rejected their testimony and ridiculed their experience. For those who work in law enforcement, where credibility is everything, this rejection was especially difficult. They had done their duty as officers of the law, yet in the face of something that could not be easily explained, they found themselves disbelieved by those who should have been their allies. The cultural ramifications of the Portage County chase were significant. The case became a touchstone for discussions about UFO sightings and government transparency. It was clear that some objects in the sky defied conventional explanations, but the broader question remained: what was the nature of these objects? Were they natural phenomena, secret military tests, or something even more mysterious? The case pushed the boundaries of what was acceptable to consider and highlighted the limitations of official investigations like Project Blue Book. Though Blue Book had investigated thousands of UFO reports, it often concluded that sightings could be explained away as misidentifications of known objects or atmospheric phenomena. Yet in the case of Portage County, the eyewitness accounts and the lack of any concrete explanations made it clear that the phenomenon could not be dismissed so easily. The incident left an indelible mark on those who experienced it, both the witnesses and the investigators who sought to understand what had happened. It was a reminder that the skies could still hold mysteries, that there were phenomena that, no matter how many times they were analyzed, defied simple understanding. The Portage County chase, in its blend of ordinary people, credible witnesses, and unexplainable events, serves as a reminder that some mysteries remain unresolved, lingering in the night sky just beyond our reach. In the aftermath of the incidents documented by NICAP, the broader cultural response to UFO sightings became more complex. As more and more reports of strange lights, unusual objects, and unexplained phenomena flooded in from across the country, the public's perception of UFOs evolved. What had once been dismissed as mere fantasy or the product of overactive imaginations slowly began to shift toward a more serious and nuanced exploration of the subject. While some remained skeptical, others found themselves intrigued by the increasing number of credible witnesses, the inconsistencies in official explanations, and the seemingly inexplicable nature of certain encounters. By the mid-1960s, UFO sightings were no longer confined to isolated reports from rural areas or small towns. The phenomenon had spread across the nation, with eyewitnesses from all walks of life, including pilots, military personnel, and law enforcement officers, offering detailed accounts of their encounters. These sightings were often corroborated by multiple witnesses and, in some cases, radar evidence, making it increasingly difficult to dismiss them as mere optical illusions or misidentified natural phenomena. As the public's fascination grew, so did the media's coverage of UFOs. Newspapers, magazines, and television programs began devoting more space to the subject, not just as sensationalist stories, but as legitimate news events. This media attention, while often tinged with skepticism or sensationalism, also helped to bring the phenomenon into the mainstream. UFO sightings were no longer confined to fringe groups or conspiracy theorists. They were part of a broader cultural conversation. One of the most significant cultural shifts during this time was the way UFOs became intertwined with the broader space race and the burgeoning interest in extraterrestrial life. The 1960s were a period of intense scientific and technological advancement, and the idea that humanity might not be alone in the universe became a central theme in popular culture. Movies, books, and television shows began exploring the possibility of alien life, and the question of whether UFOs were evidence of extraterrestrial visitors took center stage in the public's imagination. At the same time, the increasing number of UFO sightings also raised questions about the government's role in investigating and responding to these events. While the Air Force's Project Blue Book had been the official government program for studying UFOs, many felt that the program was more concerned with debunking sightings than investigating them objectively. Critics of the project argued that the government was hiding information, deliberately downplaying the significance of the sightings, and dismissing credible witnesses without sufficient investigation. This sentiment grew as more reports, like the Washington, D.C. sightings of 1952, became public, leading many to question whether the government was truly being transparent about the nature of the phenomena. In response to these concerns, NICAP and other civilian organizations began calling for greater transparency and more thorough investigations. NICAP, in particular, was vocal in its criticism of government efforts to dismiss UFO sightings, and it pushed for a more open dialogue between the public, scientists, and officials. Their work, which had focused on careful, unbiased investigations, became a counterpoint to the more sensationalized and often dismissive government responses. The organization's detailed reports and methodical approach provided a stark contrast to the narratives put forward by those who sought to minimize the significance of UFO encounters. As NICAP and other civilian groups worked to document and investigate UFO sightings, their efforts were not always well received by the scientific community. While some researchers were open to the possibility of extraterrestrial life and the potential for unknown phenomena, many remained skeptical. The lack of definitive evidence and the often ambiguous nature of the sightings made it difficult for mainstream scientists to take the phenomenon seriously. Some researchers, however, began to propose alternative theories to explain the sightings, from interdimensional beings to secret military technologies. These ideas, while intriguing, also added to the complexity and confusion surrounding UFO investigations. The cultural impact of UFO sightings extended beyond just the scientific and governmental realms. The subject began to influence popular culture in profound ways, with UFOs becoming a central theme in movies, television shows, and books. The 1950s and 1960s saw a boom in science fiction films, many of which explored the idea of alien visitation and the implications of encountering extraterrestrial life. Films like The Day the Earth Stood Still, 1951, and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, 1977, reflected the growing public interest in UFOs and extraterrestrial life, offering fictionalized but thought-provoking depictions of the unknown. The fascination with UFOs also intersected with the broader counterculture movements of the 1960s. As society questioned established norms and institutions, the idea of UFOs and alien life became a symbol of the search for deeper truths and the desire to break free from conventional thinking. UFOs, as an unexplained and mysterious phenomenon, became emblematic of the quest for knowledge and understanding in an increasingly complex and uncertain world. In this context, UFOs were not just physical objects in the sky. They became metaphors for humanity's search for meaning in the vast, unknowable universe. At the same time, the rise of UFO sightings and the increasing media coverage of the phenomenon led to the formation of UFO subcultures. Enthusiasts, researchers, and those who had witnessed UFO encounters began to form communities and organizations dedicated to the study and exploration of the phenomenon. These groups, including NICAP, provided a space for individuals to share their experiences, compare notes, and support one another. For many, UFO sightings were not just isolated events. They were part of a larger, ongoing mystery that needed to be explored and understood. In the quieter, reflective moments of this ongoing search for answers, the broader impact of UFO sightings on popular culture becomes evident. What began as a series of isolated and mysterious events gradually evolved into a cultural touchstone that shaped public discourse, influenced scientific thought, and inspired creative works across a range of media. The allure of the unknown and the possibility of extraterrestrial life continues to resonate with people, sparking imaginations and fueling the desire to look beyond the limits of our own world. In the end, UFOs have come to represent more than just unexplained phenomena. They are a symbol of our collective yearning to understand the mysteries of the universe and our place within it. As we draw closer to the end of this journey through some of the most compelling UFO cases, it is worth pausing to reflect on the deeper significance of these stories, not just for those who witness them, but for us as individuals and as a society. The quiet, methodical investigations of organizations like NICAP, their careful documentation of sightings, and their dedication to the pursuit of truth through skepticism and open-minded inquiry have created a lasting legacy in the study of UFO phenomena. But even beyond the questions of what we may or may not know about alien life, these cases prompt us to reflect on the very nature of mystery itself, how it shapes our perceptions, our cultures, and our understanding of the world around us. For the witnesses in these cases, the encounters with UFOs are transformative. They are not simply moments of observation. They are events that challenge their understanding of reality and force them to confront the limits of human knowledge. The experience of seeing something that defies all logical explanation, something that behaves in ways no aircraft, no natural phenomenon, no man-made object should be able to behave, creates a profound psychological effect. Many witnesses, especially those who are trained professionals like pilots, law enforcement officers, and military personnel, struggle with the tension between what they know to be true based on their training and what they have experienced firsthand. In many cases, these individuals are left with a quiet, lingering uncertainty, an awareness that what they saw may not be explainable, and that they may never find closure or answers. The cultural impact of UFO sightings has also been profound, influencing everything from art and literature to politics and scientific inquiry. In the decades since the first major wave of UFO sightings in the mid-20th century, UFOs have become a central part of a cultural conversation. They are no longer relegated to the fringes of science fiction. They are a part of our collective imagination. The public's fascination with UFOs has inspired countless books, movies, television shows, and documentaries, each exploring the possibility of extraterrestrial life and the potential implications of contact with beings from other worlds. From Close Encounters of the Third Kind to the X-Files, UFOs have become a symbol of the unknown, a topic that invites both fear and wonder. At the same time, the ongoing search for truth regarding UFO sightings has had an impact on scientific inquiry. While mainstream science has traditionally dismissed the subject as unworthy of serious consideration, the accumulation of credible eyewitness testimonies and radar data has prompted some scientists to reconsider the possibilities. There are a growing number of researchers, astronomers, and physicists who now argue that the study of UFOs may hold valuable insights into not only extraterrestrial life, but also the fundamental nature of our universe. The fact that so many credible people have witnessed these phenomena, people who are trained to distinguish between ordinary and extraordinary events, adds weight to the argument that UFOs are deserving of scientific investigation, even if the phenomenon itself remains elusive and difficult to understand. The role of government and military involvement in UFO investigations has also left a lasting impact. The secrecy and often dismissive attitude of official institutions toward UFO sightings have fueled a sense of distrust and suspicion among the public. Organizations like NICAP sought to bridge the gap between official secrecy and the public's right to know, advocating for greater transparency and independent investigation. The continuing mystery surrounding UFOs has created a climate of skepticism and a demand for accountability. The public's desire for answers has only grown stronger, especially as declassified government documents have shown that UFO investigations were more widespread and serious than was once publicly acknowledged. The release of these documents has spurred renewed interest in the phenomenon, and the government's reluctance to fully disclose what it knows only adds to the sense that there is something more to the story. Yet even as we look for answers, we must also consider the possibility that the true nature of UFOs may be beyond our current understanding. As the cases we've explored suggest, some sightings are simply unexplainable within the framework of known science and technology. The movements of these objects, impossibly fast, changing direction abruptly, and defying the laws of physics, suggest that we are dealing with something fundamentally different from anything we have encountered. Could these objects be the result of advanced technology from another civilization, or are they manifestations of a phenomenon that challenges our current understanding of the universe? Some researchers have even speculated that UFOs could be interdimensional rather than extraterrestrial, hinting at the possibility of alternate realities or parallel universes. Such theories, while speculative, reflect the depths of our collective curiosity and our desire to understand the truly unknown. At the same time, we must acknowledge that the search for answers has its limits. The cases we've examined in this journey are not isolated. They are part of a broader, ongoing mystery that continues to unfold in the sky above us. Yet for all the data collected, for all the testimonies, for all the analysis, we may never have all the answers. UFOs may remain, for the foreseeable future, a mystery that defies complete understanding. And perhaps that is what makes them so compelling. The very nature of mystery is what keeps us searching, what keeps us wondering, and what keeps us looking up at the sky, hoping for an answer that may never come, but still beckons us forward. In reflecting on these cases, we are reminded that our understanding of the world is always in flux. What we once thought was impossible, we now know to be reality. And just as science has expanded our knowledge of the universe in ways unimaginable just a few generations ago, so too may the study of UFOs one day reveal truths that radically change the way we see the world and our place within it. Until that time, we continue the search, moving forward with curiosity, open-mindedness, and a sense of wonder at the mysteries that still lie just beyond our grasp. Whether we find the answers or not, the pursuit itself is what defines us, the search for knowledge, for understanding, and for the possibility that the world is far stranger and far more wondrous than we could have ever imagined. As we reach the final stage of our exploration into UFOs and the investigations of organizations like NICAP, it is worth reflecting on the legacy of these efforts and the broader questions they raise. While many of the incidents we've examined remain unresolved and shrouded in mystery, the pursuit of understanding has had lasting effects on both our collective consciousness and on the way we view the unknown. These cases are not just historical footnotes. They are part of a continuing story that stretches across decades, shaping how we think about the skies above us, our place in the universe, and the possibility of life beyond Earth. One of the key takeaways from the NICAP investigations and other similar efforts is the importance of methodical, objective inquiry in the face of phenomena that challenge our understanding. In an age where sensationalism often dominates the narrative, NICAP's commitment to evidence-based investigation set them apart. They were not concerned with simply finding sensational explanations or speculating about alien visitors. Their focus was on gathering the facts, verifying testimonies, and presenting a clear, unbiased account of the events they investigated. In many ways, this approach exemplifies the best of scientific inquiry, a commitment to truth and understanding, regardless of how unsettling or uncomfortable the answers might be. In today's context, NICAP's legacy continues to resonate, especially as more and more people seek credible information about UFOs and related phenomena. As interest in UFOs has surged again in recent years, particularly after the release of government documents and the mainstream media's increasing focus on the subject, the work of organizations like NICAP feels more relevant than ever. The 2020 Pentagon reports, which acknowledged the existence of unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, and the subsequent media coverage, have helped to shift the conversation from fringe theory to mainstream discussion. The public now has a more open dialogue about the possibility of alien life and the implications of these encounters, thanks in part to the groundwork laid by groups like NICAP decades ago. Yet despite the growing body of evidence and the increasing acceptance of UFOs as a legitimate subject for serious investigation, there remains a significant divide between the general public's fascination with the phenomenon and the scientific community's reluctance to engage fully with it. Many researchers and institutions continue to treat UFOs with skepticism, largely due to the lack of direct, irrefutable evidence and the challenges inherent in studying something that defies conventional scientific understanding. While some scientists have begun to explore the possibilities more seriously, the broader academic community remains hesitant to embrace the idea that UFOs could be evidence of extraterrestrial intelligence or unknown technology. This reluctance speaks to a deeper philosophical question about the nature of knowledge itself. What happens when we encounter something that does not fit neatly into our established understanding of the world? How do we reconcile our need for answers with the humbling reality that some mysteries may never be fully understood? The UFO phenomenon represents a point of tension between our desire for certainty and the vastness of the unknown. It reminds us that no matter how far we advance in our understanding of the world, there are still things beyond our grasp, things that defy explanation and push the boundaries of human knowledge. The reluctance of many to engage fully with the UFO phenomenon is not just a matter of skepticism. It is also a reflection of broader cultural and institutional inertia. Our institutions, whether scientific, governmental, or educational, are built on established paradigms and accepted truths. To acknowledge that we may be dealing with something beyond our current understanding requires a willingness to challenge these paradigms and embrace uncertainty. In a world that often values definitive answers and clear categories, the UFO mystery presents a unique challenge. It calls into question the limits of human knowledge and suggests that there may be aspects of the universe that exist outside the framework of what we can comprehend or measure. For those who have witnessed UFOs or have been involved in the investigations surrounding them, the experience is often a humbling one. These events disrupt the everyday assumptions we make about the world, challenging our sense of control and understanding. In many ways, these encounters force us to confront the possibility that our grasp of reality may be more limited than we like to believe. Whether the objects in the sky are extraterrestrial spacecraft, military technology, or something entirely different, the fact that they remain largely unexplained serves as a reminder that there is much we do not know. This acknowledgement can be unsettling, but it also offers an opportunity for growth, a chance to expand the boundaries of our understanding and to embrace the mysteries that still exist. One of the most enduring aspects of the UFO phenomenon is its ability to spark curiosity and wonder. As the study of UFOs and related phenomena continues to evolve, we are reminded that the search for answers is as much about the journey as it is about the destination. With each new sighting, each new report, we are confronted not just with the possibility of extraterrestrial life or advanced technology, but with the deeper questions about human perception, the nature of reality, and the limits of our understanding. Whether or not we ever uncover definitive proof of alien existence, the process of investigating these mysteries teaches us to approach the unknown with open minds and a sense of wonder. What remains certain is that the legacy of organizations like NICAP, along with the countless individuals who have dedicated themselves to understanding UFOs, continues to inspire curiosity and critical thinking. These investigations remind us that there are still mysteries in the world, things that exist just beyond the reach of our current knowledge. In a world that often values immediate answers, the UFO phenomenon invites us to embrace uncertainty and to wonder about the possibilities that lie beyond the ordinary. In that sense, the search itself and our willingness to engage with the unknown is a profound reflection of our ongoing quest for discovery.